We are 2 days away from Halloween, and it is spooky season for the Memphis Grizzlies. Who are they as a team? We're still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to figure out their rotation choices, though. We'll see if Damichael Cole can talk me down from that. Plus, it's scary hours when it comes to Ja Morant finding a new level of his game, and we're going to preview Grizzlies-Suns tonight. All that and more on this scary edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
There is no need to fear on this Wednesday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. It's not quite Halloween yet, and I am Joe Mullinax, one of your hosts, back with you. Excited to be here alongside my tremendous co-host, the incomparable Damichael Cole, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal. This is Locked On Grizzlies, and we're excited to have you with us for the next 30 minutes or so talking Memphis Grizzlies basketball. Make sure that you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing, wherever you get your podcasts. Proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube. Make sure you are hanging out with Damichael and I each and every time that an episode drops. Become an everydayer and someone that enjoys Locked On Grizzlies each and every time a show hits the podcast waves, YouTube, however you want to describe it. Make our little corner of the internet, Locked On Grizzlies, a nice cozy home for you every time we are brand new. And today's another day that we get a chance to do that. And Damichael Cole, it's always a good day when I get a chance to talk Grizzlies basketball with you, my friend. And I know that you were frustrated yesterday.
Man,
I heard the show, all those sorts of things. I know that you were a little disappointed. And I feel like that I'm probably going to open that wound up a little bit here. And I apologize in advance for that. Because, again, it takes a lot for Damichael to get fired up.
It takes a lot. It takes Draymond Green jumping around the court and nobody doing anything. That's what it takes.
Yeah, I get it. But I'm going to say what I'm going to say at the risk of making you more mad. And I apologize in advance. I have had some issues on social media, at Joe Mullinax on X, for those that want to follow along, with some of the lineup choices that Tuomas Isalo has been making. And I'm sure somebody's going to go in the comments and say, Joe, you're not an NBA head coach. Shut up. You're bald and fat. And those things might be true. All three of those things.
Do people really say that to you?
Yeah, sometimes. Somebody asked me like what I knew about being an athlete or a high-level athlete when I was criticizing John Conchar. And they just don't know that I'm 6'2", 280 pounds of screaming steel and sex appeal to Damichael Cole. You've seen me firsthand.
That's right.
You know what I'm capable of.
That's right.
But,
let them know.
Not everybody does. It's just a giant floating head here on YouTube. But in all seriousness, part of my job, if you want to call this a job, is to, give some input, give some analysis here. And I have an issue, first and foremost, with Jock Landale. And this is why I know I'm probably opening a wound here, because I know Jaren had a rough time with Draymond Green on Monday, right? I get it. We're still probably upset about that, but I am struggling with seeing the value in continuing to invest minutes in Jock Landale as a starter in particular. Now, you obviously don't really have anybody else. Charles Bassey should be in the mix, hopefully as soon as tonight against the Suns. So he's on that 10-day contract. You hope to see him on the court. But Jaren Jackson Jr. has played the 5 before, like a lot. And I'm kind of thinking to Michael, maybe instead of, we need this guy for screening purposes, we need this guy for rebounding purposes. Never mind, he's not actually doing that particularly well. He is really not that much better of a rebounder, at least not in terms of the way that the numbers are lining up early. And again, numbers early on in the season can be flawed, of course. But I'm not seeing the Jock Landale value in that starting lineup. I would rather just play your best guys more. And I feel like Jaren at the 5 alongside, take your pick, Javon Small, somebody along like a Cedric Howard. I'll even, to be completely and totally fair, I'll even bring up the name old Johnny Basketball himself.
No,
John
you would.
Conchar.
No, you would.
Had a good start to his season.
He's at a what, Joe?
A good start to his season. It hurts me to say it more than
this is really a spooky episode right here.
I told you it was going to be spooky.
You're scaring me, Joe. This
maybe
ain't you.
Conchar and Aldama, maybe it says more about how out I am on Landale than it says about how Johnny basketball's been playing. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Landale choice. Do you think I'm overreacting? Do you think that Landale's doing what the team? I want to stress, I don't expect him to be Zach Edey.
Yeah,
but I've seen enough of him to say, yeah, he's an end of bench guy. He probably doesn't even need to be playing right now.
Yeah. And you just aligned it perfectly. He's an end of bench guy that probably shouldn't be playing right now. So it comes with the expectation. At the end of the day, when the Grizzlies got Jock Landale, Joe, when me and you were talking about our rotations, none of them included Jock Landale. So he wasn't even expected to be a rotation player, let alone to be a starter. But we know, with Zach Edey being out, with Brandon Clark being out, that has really changed the equation of the situation where you have no choice but to start him, or you're going to do what you said, throw Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 5.
Yeah, I think you do have a choice.
There's
a choice there.
No.
Damichael, I know you're still disappointed, but they do have a choice.
No.
Jaren has played the 5 before, Damichael.
I can't do it right now. Not right now. Jaren's fouling a lot, and that's for one. And I think he'd be more vulnerable to that at the 5, whereas the 4, you have him as a roamer. At the 5, he's going to be much more involved defensively in those actions, as we've seen, with Jock Landale up to this point. And Jock Landale is fouled out of a game too. And, in that situation, Jaren, with his foul trouble woes over the course of his career, would probably have fouled out even sooner. But yeah, look, I love Jaren at the 4. He's a physical mismatch at the 4. He can guard on that end at the 4. And I just much rather have a guy who, Jock Landale does give you that physicality. There are some shortcomings there. He's also shot the 3-point ball decently well. But the defensive rebounding, there's not a lot of offensive flash, I guess you would say, to his game. But if trying to take Jock Landale out of the starting lineup, why not put Charles Bassey in?
Sure.
And look,
that would be fine too.
He hasn't been there long, and I know the Grizzlies, there's a lot of screen and roll stuff on ball, off the ball. So it probably, wouldn't make sense. That's probably why he didn't play in that first game where he technically was available and they didn't play him, because there are some things that he's going to have to learn, and, they're trying to, put him through, so to speak, in this little short, brief stint of time. But yeah, I'm of the opinion I don't want to start Jaren at the 5. I like what they do right now, which is, when they start Jock Landale and they bring Santi in the game, you slide Jaren over to the 5 in those small stretches, because you're not going to be a good rebounding team with him at the 5. And actually, with Jock Landale, at least I know I'm going to get some offensive rebounding. He's been offensive rebounding the ball, right, Joe? You can give him that. The offensive rebounding has been okay. Yeah, he might not be Steven Adams or Zach Randolph, but he's getting on the offensive glass a little bit. And with that being the case, it comes with the expectation. At the end of the day, I never expected Jock Landale to be a rotation player consistently for the Grizzlies. I expected him to be a guy who at, certain times when Brandon Clark's in foul trouble, when Zach Edey's in foul trouble, you can get 4 to 5 minutes out of him, which I think he's still very capable of, give you a little bit spark, and then he goes right back to the bench. The problem is when you have him in the game and you're saying, we want you to play 25 to 30 minutes.
Jock Landale isn't even Johnny Conchar when it comes to offensive rebounding. And again,
nobody. That's a high standard, Joe. That's
nobody is more pained than me to have to say that out loud. I want to stress that. But John Conchar, the team rebounds offensive rebounds more, 12.4%. They rebound 12.4% better when John Conchar is on the court. When Landale is on the court, it's only 7.6%. Again,
what is it with Jaren Jackson Jr. on the floor? Just out of curiosity.
When Jaren Jackson Jr. is on the floor, the team is minus 1.2%. Or excuse me, wait, I misread it. They are minus 14%.
Oh, well, there we go. We
offensive rebounds minus 14%.
Minus 14%, and you want to make him your starting center.
Oh, that's offensive rebounding, Damichael. Like, you can do that as a group.
If you look at the starting lineup right now, there are a lot of missed shots. I don't know if you've seen these 3-point numbers.
Yeah, I've seen it.
You need those offensive rebounds.
Yeah, no, they're long boards too right now.
It's some long boards right now.
It's like they're surfing out in Cali in their free time, longboarding with some of these misses. You make a fair point. Let Damichael and I know in the comments. Hit us up on X at Mullinax at Damichael C. Am I being too hard on Jock Landale? I understand who he is, but I just struggle. I know there's better players. If it's so bad that I am complimenting John Conchar, if you're an everydayer, you know it to be true that I'm in dire
You got
straits.
people. I've seen people on X saying white rice and stuff now. Like, this man has started a brand with this thing.
I've started a trend. I have.
It's really it's growing.
But you know what? General Tso's chicken is pretty good with white rice. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
There you go.
When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to talk about something else that might have you scared a little bit, but in a good way. Ja Morant taking a certain kind of shot more than he ever has in his NBA career. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard us talk about before, just with a new name, and here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system to keep you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app or on your phone and computer. No more carrying two phones or relying on a landline. We love how Quo, formerly known as Open Phone, lets you talk to your team and share one number, collaborating on calls and texts. It's like a shared inbox, so no customer gets left hanging. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by Rippling. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It is seriously simple to use, and it gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnba. Learn more at rippling.com/lockedonnba. That's rippling.com/lockedonnba for 6 months free. So, Damichael, you called me out on my numbers, my cleaning the glass numbers. Hurt my feelings a little bit. I'm not going to lie. We're still buddies and pals and all, but you made me read minus 14% for Jaren Jackson Jr. earlier in the show. So I'm going to jump ahead of you here a little bit, if you'll forgive me. Check this out from our boy Ja Morant. Ja Morant is currently shooting 50%, a little bit less than that, 49%, almost half of Ja Morant's shot attempts to this point in the season. Again, just 4 games, 109 minutes in.
Yep.
About half of those shot attempts are coming at the mid-range. Wow. All mid-range jumpers. That is in the 91st percentile in the entire NBA. So if you've been sitting there watching these games and thinking, John's shooting a lot more mid-range jumpers, you're not alone in thinking that. It led me to look up the numbers, and the numbers back up the eye test. And here's the most exciting part, Damichael. Ja is converting these, again, very early in the season, at a career high clip, especially in the long mid-range. Now, Cleaning the Glass defines long mid-range of shots outside of about 14 feet inside the three-point arc. So that is what a long mid-range shot is in the eyes of Cleaning the Glass. Outside of 14 feet, but inside the three-point arc. Ja is shooting 56% on these shots currently. That is 100th percentile. What does that mean? That means that it is the best of the best in the entire National Basketball Association. Now, let me read off his percentages the last couple of seasons. Last year, 39%.
Wow.
Year before that, 38%. His best career year in the long mid-range to this point was 43%, and that was back in the 2022-2023 season. So I am certainly expecting some regression to the mean. But The fact that he is prioritizing these shots, the
Yep.
fact that he's converting them at a high clip, if you're worried about his efficiency shooting, that's understandable. His efficiency rating as of this moment, or effective field goal percentage per cleaning the glass, 42.5%. That's 18th percentile. That's not good. That would be a career low by some large amount. But the main reason for that is he is not shooting particularly well at the rim right now. He's having a regression season in that space.
He's wild,
doing really well in the mid-range, and of course he's doing terribly from three, currently shooting 11%. So we'll acknowledge that certainly could be a lot better, and hopefully that will bounce back. But even more so than the conversions, Damichael, the fact that he is actively trying to make himself a mid-range threat, that is going to make all the difference as the season goes on. If he can hit that shot enough, the defenses have to respect it.
Joe, that shot's been there Ja Morant's entire career.
Correct.
It's been there if you were watching Ja Morant in 21, 22 in the playoffs when we watched that Minnesota Timberwolves series and everything was so hard for Ja Morant. That mid-range shot was there a few times, but you know what Ja did? He continued putting his head down and going straight to the rim and passing up, that mid-range shot, because it's never there very long. It's a shot that when teams give you, because a lot of defenses are designed, and that's why the Kevin Durant's and Chris Paul, DeMar DeRozan's, even LeBron James at this point of view, the guys who can punish you in that area, Jokic to a certain degree, a lot of defenses are giving you that shot. And it's not long. When they're playing drop coverage or whatever, you have a second or so to decide, I'm going to take this shot or the defense is going to recover and they're going to be right there. So you can't hesitate. You have to see it and you have to take it. And it takes reps to have that confidence. And so many years we saw that half second Ja would look up, put his head back down and go straight towards the rim. And, sometimes he'd get the foul call. Sometimes he didn't and people would complain or Ja would complain. Or sometimes he'd have a fancy finish, around the rim. But what we're seeing now is what I call just, maturity, from a skill level standpoint. This is what all the great players go through at certain points of their career. Look at LeBron James post game right now. I guarantee you go back to 2009, 2008, 2007 LeBron James, you're not going to see this seasoned of a post game. You're going to see an incredible athlete, but you're not going to see this polished post game that he's created. The patience that Kevin Durant has developed over the course of his career. And even you want to get into the dynamic point guards. Go look at De'Aaron Fox from when he first broke in the league. He was a speed demon. And then all of a sudden, his game is so much more pace now. And as he likes to say, De'Aaron Fox will say it himself, he uses the speed when he has to, but he doesn't want to be solely known as a speed guy who is pretty much relying on his game. And quite frankly, my guy John Wall, that's why John Wall still isn't in the league at this point. He was very much a speed guy. And when it became time to adjust, there wasn't much there. Russell Westbrook isn't a starter, everyday starter anymore of the last 3 seasons because of the fact that that mid-range jumper, he takes it. He has the intentionality to take it, but it's not falling at an efficient clip. So this is great to see from Ja Morant because this is going to be there for him. And, defenses, they're going to disrespect the three-point shot and they're going to disrespect the mid-range shot to a certain level because no one wants Ja to get easy stuff around the rim. You mentioned that his numbers are down around the rim, and they're down around the rim because that's where all the attention is going to be flowed in for him. And so it's good to see him, owning that, and I expected to see it, but it's good to see that, and I think it's something we'll need to monitor as the season goes on.
Again, small sample size, that is important to point out. But again, the intentionality, I love that word that you mentioned with Russell Westbrook there. The intentionality of it from Ja is good to see. And Ja gets a bad rep for a lot of things, but he definitely gets a bad rep when it comes to just seeing him as an athlete. We've talked about his handle, how he's not Kyrie Irving, but he's a tier below that in terms of some of the
he got a nice handle
in the NBA. And he also has amazing vision. His passing, he had a great move the other night where he got 2 Warriors defenders up off their feet, found Jalen Wells under the bucket for an easy dunk. He has a lot of intentionality in his game. This is another example of that. And it's something that Ja is going to be able to continue to develop as he gets older. He's still young. He's entering his prime in terms of his athletic years. But at the same time, those years will pass just like they do for all of us. And when you hit that wall, it's the Durant's and the LeBron is a cyborg. But, Kevin Durant's a great example. And you watch some of these older players as they age gracefully. They look like they're slower, and part of it is because they are. But it's also because they're more focused on the actual skill of the game and creating that space, utilizing post moves, utilizing their bodies in a different way than they did when they were younger. There is so much to the game of basketball that is, in my opinion, a more beautiful version of the game when it is played with that level of skill. I'll take it back to Zach Randolph, right? I loved watching Zach Randolph play in the post. It was one of my favorite things ever. And he couldn't jump over a phone book, right? He didn't have a vertical. He didn't have some elite athletic skill, but he was an elitely skilled basketball player. And the way he created that space and used his body and understood points of leverage, there's so much that goes into the game that goes beyond athleticism. That is something that you need to learn pretty early on, because athleticism fails all of us. The guys that stay in the league are the ones that learn how to play the game. And Ja is clearly doing that.
Yeah, and that is, that next level. Like, at some point, you're not going to be the fastest point guard. You're not going to be the point guard who could jump the highest. But what's next for you in your career? And I've always said I want to see Ja kind of like pick and choose his opportunities. But, I was talking to Tim Legler about this, and I won't be long with this point, but Tim Legler said something important to me when we were having this conversation about Ja Morant and this whole idea that, Ja needs to stop going to the rim as much and putting his body in harm's way. And Tim Legler made a good point. He said, that's what he's great at. So it's easy to say stop doing something, but he hasn't been great in those other areas. So it's now, with the added addition to the mid-range game and things like that, now you can pick and choose your battles a little bit more instead of, going all the way to the rim. And I thought, even if you go back to that first game of the season against the Pelicans, when he shot that floater, that was a time, I think Ja Morant 2 years ago goes jumping towards the rim, in between trying to split it, the double team, or jumping over someone, or however you want to handle it. But we're definitely, I think, seeing early on in the season kind of a more matured version of, I'm going to take these mid-range shots when I have them, and he's been knocking them down.
He's doing a heck of a job in that particular way. The other numbers will bounce back. He surely will regress to the mean a little bit in terms of not being in the 100th percentile. But again, I love the word intentionality. The fact that he's focused on it is a great thing to see. So shout out to Ja for that. Let us know in the comments. Hit us up on X at Damichael C, at Joe Mullinax. Are you excited about Ja Morant in the mid-range like Damichael and I are? When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to close out this edition of the show previewing tonight's contest with the Phoenix Suns. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps. It suggests the right weights. It corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. And the personalized class recommendations can keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy all week long. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explain the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Go and check them out right now. Joe Mullinax and Damichael Cole here with you, closing out this Wednesday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Always good when we're together. Again, if you are an everydayer already, thank you so much 1,000 times over. If you are not an everydayer, make sure you are one by the time you leave us here today at Locked On Grizzlies. If you are an everydayer and you've been with us for a bit, you already know tomorrow's episode is going to be hosted by Damichael Cole, because Joe Mullinax is very old and very washed and will not be staying up late to watch that game. But Damichael will be with you on tomorrow's show. Damichael, what are some things that you think we're going to be talking about going into that Thursday episode? Obviously, the team getting a little bit healthier. I noticed that Vince Williams Jr. is questionable. Maybe will make his season debut. That would be a big deal for Vince. I know that there is something going on with Santi Aldama in terms of shoulder soreness, that sort of thing. So we'll keep an eye on that. Ja Morant, nowhere to be seen. Jaren Jackson Jr., nowhere to be seen. When those two guys are on the floor for Memphis, they have a chance in any game that they play. What are some of your keys to tonight's game for the Grizzlies out in Phoenix?
Well, the number one thing is who you're going to be playing against, right? We know Dylan Brooks will be out in this game, but Jalen Green, who has yet to play, a game for the Suns this season, is questionable. And when you just hear that Jalen Green is questionable, you're probably like, so what? But if you have been a Grizzlies fan of over the years, you've seen Jalen Green at times put up some nice performances, against the Grizzlies. And, it's going to be his season debut if he plays. Again, he's listed as questionable. So he hasn't played yet this season. So you potentially could get a different looking Phoenix Suns starting lineup. I think they've been using the backcourt combination of Devin Booker and Grayson Allen so far, in the early going. And then the other thing that comes to mind for me, and this is going to be every time we talk about a Memphis Grizzlies game going forward until Zach Edey is back, my eyes will automatically start with the front court matchup. And this one is interesting because if you look at, the Suns roster, you're like, man, they got some big dudes. They drafted Kamai Maluak out of Duke, with a top 10 pick.
They drafted who?
Kamai Maluak.
That is impressive. That is excellent pronunciation.
Well
done,
Thank you. Put a little work in. But and then you got Mark Williams, right, from the Hornets, and then there's Nick Richards as well, former Hornets center, guy we talked about at one point being on the Grizzlies. But they have some size, but they've actually started also Iguodaro. I believe I got that one right too. Yeah. Also Iguodaro. They've started him at center so far this season. And that matchup, like, also is more of like a connector type guy. He's not really going to shoot. He's not the biggest guy. I think that favors Memphis more. At some point, the Suns are going to make the switch. I know they've been bringing Mark Williams along slowly, through his injury recovery and whatnot. But at some point, Mark Williams will go to the starting lineup. And if he's in the starting lineup, he could be a forceful presence. But again, with this Suns team, overall, with the lineups that they've been using, they're a little bit smaller, which negates any type of big physical advantage that they could have. And I think that's something that's been giving the Grizzlies a little bit of trouble. I want to see Charles Bassey, though. I do think, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, give him 4 minutes, first half, 4 minutes, like let him get out there, get his feet wet, because it's going to come time very soon here. You're going to really need, that type of guy to take the floor. Especially, with some of the upcoming games, maybe not the Lakers. I know they got DeAndre Ayton, but they don't have a lot of size in their front court in that game. But after that, when you talk about the Raptors and the Pistons, two teams with a little bit of size right there. So, I do want to see a little bit of Charles Bassey. But, this is one where, I think you can consider this is a game that the Grizzlies very much should win.
Yeah, and it could theoretically help them with draft pick odds, right? And that sort of stuff. So obviously the team.
Look at you playing the long game. Look at you.
Yeah, well, when you give up the amount of points that the Grizzlies have given up these first 4 games, you're not expecting, big dreams, but they're not healthy, in fairness to them. For me, it's always going to be about turnovers. That's going to be something that's really a focal point. Got to protect possessions. And I'm also intrigued. You mentioned Charles Bassey. I am intrigued by how Cam Spencer continues to kind of find his rhythm in that rotation if he keeps getting opportunity, right? Because you have talked about in the past, and you and I have talked about a little bit as well, we like him so much more as a spot-up shooter. We like him so much more in that role as a wing defender. Not really a true point guard, not our bag when it comes to Cam. I think that if they can continue to get a lot out of Javon Small, who's had a great start to the season, obviously John Morant playing good minutes, I think the more that they can get Cam Spencer off the ball and the more that they can allow for him to be in that space where he is that floor spacer, it's going to provide so much more opportunity for other Grizzlies players to help that offense when it gets stuck in the muck a little bit. So I'm looking at a Cam Spencer as a guy that we know can knock down threes, especially with other guys like KCP and Wells struggling. Can they get Spencer going on the perimeter and help with some of those offensive lulls?
Yeah, this seems like a game that Jaren should get going as well. The Suns with the wing guys that they start, there's not a lot of dynamic offensive players. When you talk about guys like Ryan Dunn, Royce O'Neal, these aren't the type of guys that are going to put you in foul trouble, so to speak. They're also smaller guys compared to Jaren. We know Ryan Dunn has a very much known as a defender at this early part of his career. Royce O'Neal has also, done some nice things defensively over the course of his career. But these guys should be food in a way to Jaren. And Jaren should have a better game, especially playing the 4 against this Suns team. I think that'll bode really well for him. But Joe, at some point, I want to see G.G. Jackson. Like, you're going to need him in some of these stretches. Like, we've talked about the rotations and stuff. They're going to need his scoring at some point. And I wrote about him this morning. I want people to go check that out because he said some really good things, from a maturity standpoint about, his growth in terms of learning how to deal with not playing as much. Remember, at first, Gigi you could see it on his face. You could see the disappointment on his face when he wasn't playing, but there's maturity that has come with the role that he's been given. And, with the team being shorthanded for a while right now, at some point he's going to get a chance.
If only there was somebody with a very limited ceiling that could be sat down in exchange for
Come
one.
on, Joe. You've been talking good about him the whole episode.
I couldn't do it for a whole episode. I couldn't do it. Sorry. Kudos to John Conchar and all the Concharites out there that are, blowing me up on X whenever Conchar makes a pass to somebody for a dunk. I get 10 mentions in my feed. Mullinax is fuming. Those sorts of things. Yeah, fine. Back to getting G.G. Jackson back in. I've been nice enough to John Conchar for one episode of Locked On Grizzlies. So, again, make sure you're with us on Thursday. And when I say us, I mean that in the non-literal sense because I'm old and washed. And Damichael will be with you for the Thursday edition of Locked On Grizzlies post Grizzlies-Suns. Thanks so much for being with us on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies, making us your first listen every day. For your second listen, go find Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We at Locked On Grizzlies are also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. Hang out with Damichael and I each and every time that an episode drops. Become an everydayer. Help us make our little corner of the internet, Locked On Grizzlies, that much bigger. It's been a great month of October. Damichael and I are so grateful to everybody that has hung out with us. Continue to do so as we head into the end of October and the beginning of November. Thank you 1,000 times for hanging out with us today. For Damichael Cole, I am Joe Mullinax. Stay locked in. Go Grizzlies. Go beat the Suns, even if it means John Conchar has to play 20 minutes. Fine. I'll end on a positive note. Have a good one.